Opening report Monday, June 22nd. He's Teddy Covers. I am Drew Martin. Today's opening line report, guys, we're going over the AFC South, but feel free to throw out any questions you have in the chat box. But without further ado, Teddy, welcome in. How you doing this morning, buddy?
I'm doing great, Drew. I missed you the last couple of weeks. The 1 week I had a cough and I was scared to go live, and then the last week we had technical difficulties. So it's good to be back on with you, my friend, and looking forward to breaking down the AFC South.
Yeah, good to be back on with you, back in the saddle here. And guys, last week I do apologize. A couple of you guys reaching out to me. That was totally on my end. Was traveling down in the Sunshine State, and had some technical difficulties on my end. But we are back. AFC South today. Welcome in, Paul, in the chat box. And guys, always please like the video if you're liking the content. And any questions, feel free to shout it out. Paul joining us from England on the other side of the pond there, Teddy. But AFC South here. One thing I noticed in preparing for the show here, Teddy, it's the most kind of condensed division in the NFL in terms of, top to bottom. We had Houston at 10-6 and Jacksonville at the bottom at just 6-10. And of course, Indy and Tennessee falling in between. So from top to bottom, from straight up record anyway, the most condensed division in all of the NFL.
Yeah, and last year, very competitive division, a division that came down to week 17. And certainly when we look at the odds for this year, we expect it to be a very competitive division. Again, there are three teams priced as being live in this division to win the division. The Colts plus 135, Titans plus 140, Texans plus 300. And then there's the Jaguars at 25-1 to win the AFC South. So three teams in contention. The Texans, of the three, despite their recent success, the team that's gotten the least respect in the betting markets this offseason. We can talk about odds to make the playoffs. Colts are minus 170, yes, right now. The no plus 150. The Titans have taken a fair bit of money to the yes. Open minus 125. Now that's minus 140 to the yes. That's plus 120 on the no for Tennessee to make the playoff. We've seen a lot of anti-Texans money for the postseason. The Texans opened. It was basically a pick 'em when they make the playoffs. Yes, minus 105, no, minus 115. Well, that yes is now plus 150 for the Texans to make the playoffs, and no, minus 170. The early money has most assuredly come against the Houston Texans. And, of course, the Jaguars opened at plus 850 to make the playoffs. They take a little bit of money, plus 750 now here in Vegas. And, of course, when it comes to win totals this year, the Colts lined at 9, the Titans 8.5, the Texans 7.5. And the Jacksonville Jaguars lined as expected to be one of the, if not the worst team in the NFL. The Jags, they win 5 games, they'll go over their win total of 4.5. So if you go 5-11 and cash a winning bet on and over, that tells you about market expectations very much for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2020. In terms of what the schedules we're looking at this year, worth noting, the AFC South faces up against the AFC North and the NFC North. That means not much travel. They're not traveling west to east all year long and back and forth again. AFC North and NFC North, neither of which is considered among the most elite of divisions. In fact, when you break down this year's wins totals this year's schedule based on the 2020 win totals, both the Colts and the Titans rank among the easiest schedules in the NFL on paper heading into 2020. And that's based on good numbers, not last year's numbers. That's based on this year's win totals. Both Indy and Tennessee have very friendly looking schedules.
I like it, Teddy. Good stuff there. Both North divisions there for the AFC South cross division scheduling there. And Teddy, I guess we can jump right into it. And Mike, welcome in. Paul, Chris Lippins. Yes, that is what happens when you go to Florida. Something always crazy happens. Talking about Florida men there in the news. But first team up, Teddy, both alphabetical order and last year's division winner. We got the Houston Texans, 10-6 last year straight up. I got them at 7-9 ATS. There was a couple close ones there right around the number, and over under 7-9 trending towards the under. One interesting note the Houston Texans were outscored last year. Even though they went 10-6, they gave up more points than they scored. DeAndre Hopkins also gone to the Arizona Cardinals, their number one wide receiver, I believe 3-time Pro Bowler. DeAndre Hopkins gone. Deshaun Watson, I'm a big fan of him. Loved him at Clemson, Teddy. I think he's done a great job here in the NFL. I think they have the best quarterback in the division, but I'll throw it over to you, man. What are you thinking for the Houston Texans this year?
Well, I mean, the Texans weren't just outscored for the year last year, finishing with a negative point differential. Mm-hmm. They were outgained on a yards per play basis, 5.7 yards per play on offense, slightly above league average, 6.1 yards per play allowed on defense, well above league average. It wasn't turnovers that got into the postseason. They finished with a negative net zero in turnovers. What it was is the ability to win close games, as you mentioned, strong quarterback play. As you mentioned, that's what's made Houston what they are. And again, this team, I know they haven't been to the Super Bowl. They've had 5 winning seasons and 4 division titles in the last 6 years. They went 10-6 last year, 11-5 the year before. The Texans have been very, very good. And it's worth noting the 10-6 last year came against, based on my powering number, the game the week was played, or the week the game was played, they played the single toughest schedule in the NFL last year. So they won 10 games against a brutal slate. Now, we talked about this year in this division, it's relatively easy. The problem for Houston and why they have the toughest schedule in the division, their 2 extra games are coming against 2 first-place teams from last year. That would be at Kansas City and New England. That's 2 pretty tough extra games. You know, they have KC, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Mini the first 4 weeks, then at Tennessee and Green Bay before the bye, then 5 road games in 7 weeks after the bye. Houston, by far the toughest schedule in this division coming into 2020. And that's certainly an issue with why they're lined a 7.5 win team. Their first 2 games are both TV games, and they have nothing scheduled on TV for the entire rest of the season. No night games. Their Week 15 game against Indy is a flex game. But Texans will get some attention early. And if they're not in contention, they could really fade from the public consciousness this year, which in theory, they may offer some value over the back half of the season if they struggle early on. Worth noting, there are issues with, this is a year where we're very interested in continuity in coaching staffs. All right. Anthony Weaver comes back as defense coordinator. They have a new play caller in Tim Kelly. He was the offense coordinator last year. So it's not like it's a huge difference, but Tim Kelly's going to be calling the plays this year as opposed to Bill O'Brien, who's done that in the past. You talked about some of the, well, let's talk about the draft. They didn't have a whole lot of draft capital left considering the deals they make. They got Ross Blaylock on the defensive line out of TCU. They got Jonathan Greenard shoring up their linebacking core, a couple of 400, really only 4 draft picks. But it was the Texans team that didn't accomplish a lot in the draft in terms of impact players. You talked about the loss of DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, and then picking up David Johnson's contract with it. The biggest criticisms of Houston this offseason is not just, well, you traded away Hopkins. It's you overpaid for everyone that you signed, whether it's Bradley Roby, whether it's Randall Cobb, whether it's the kicker, Fairburn. There was a special teams guy in Eric Murray they spent $18 million on, a $4 million on the backup quarterback in AJ McCarron. So it's a team that kicked the can down the road in terms of salary cap issues. They don't have a lot of money to spend. They certainly don't have the depth that we thought that they would, but they have the best quarterback in the division. They have a team that's been there and done that, and even with some holes. And again, you worry about them at edge rusher. J.J. Watt, is he going to be able to be the player that he was? I look at Houston as a contender, not a pretender, and the market's having crashed on this team. There might be a little value on Houston moving forward. There might be. Again, they have a bet-on quarterback and a team that's been there and has been, I know last year wasn't a great ATS team year for Houston, but make no mistake about it, Drew. the markets are really down on the Texans. If they're pretty good, they'll end up making you money.
Yeah, great breakdown, Teddy. And I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you said. It's just, could this catch up to him this year? We saw the Titans have a pretty good year last year, look to be building on that. Rashawn Brown, he's given out you a nice comment here in the chat box, Teddy. In a world gone awry, one constant in all this chaos is Teddy delivering facts you can cash to the bank. Never change, Teddy. Never change. That's from Rashad Brown there, Teddy.
Thank you.
We also got Andy. Yeah, for sure. We also got Andy Wertman saying, "Did Houston give up on Miller?" ?
Miller.
Yeah, I'm not following. I thought you might know where he was going with that, but we can leave it at that if you want.
No, I'm going to tell him which Miller. I'm honestly, I'm spacing on what Miller he's talking about. So if he tells me what Miller, I'll answer as best I can.
Okay. All right. Andy, feel free to follow up on that question and we'll get it out here. Teddy, one question I do have for you. DeAndre Hopkins, gone to the Arizona Cardinals. We also have some guys out here saying that's really going to help them out and Kyler Murray. But how big of a loss do you think that is for the Texans this year? They do have other, pretty good wide receiver talent here.
Yeah, on the one hand, it's huge. And on the other hand, maybe it's not that huge. And again, it's not like Bill O'Brien is necessarily coaching for his job, but it's not like Bill O'Brien has this enormous amount of, rope that he can hang himself indefinitely. The guy cannot trade away. And when you look at Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, and we know what's going to happen with Stills and Randall Cobb, Kiki Kute was a player for these guys. I mean, it's not like they have nothing at wide receiver. It's not like they have no playmakers on the roster. It's just that Hopkins has been so exceptional for this team for so long. We have to expect some kind of a drop-off. But O'Brien, they traded him because O'Brien didn't want him in that locker room. And in my opinion, it really seems that way. There's no other way to figure out why. There's nothing else that makes sense for that deal getting done the way that it did. And when you say, hey, it's not like they don't have any playmakers. They got plenty of playmakers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Hopkins trade ends up being something that nobody's really talking about in Houston by October. On the other hand, if the Texans stink and if Fuller gets hurt and then Cobb doesn't live up to his free agent contract and all of a sudden they're not chucking the ball downfield, it'll have a huge impact. But if you're asking me what, I would say it's more likely to have a lesser impact than a greater impact. They have wide receiver depth. They have wide receiver talent. So, I didn't understand the addition of David Johnson at that price point. But the loss of Hopkins to me it's a great addition for Arizona, but it doesn't necessarily make the Texans significantly weaker in any way.
Okay. And Andy did get back to us. And one thing I noticed here, it's a common last name Miller. That's why it kind of threw us off. And then not too common of a first name, Lamar Miller.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I'm not even convinced. I don't even know where he's on the roster.
Yeah, that's why it flew over both of our heads probably. So I guess they did give up on him if we haven't heard of him. Yeah,
I'm not. I got the. Let me pull the depth chart. I'm not even seeing it on the depth chart, so I don't know. He's not. He's not someone who has been on my radar this offseason. So I apologize, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not even seeing him. I don't even know where he went. Let's Google him and find out where Lamar Miller ended up.
All right, you Google that, Teddy, and I'll catch up on the chat box. And we got to get to our next team here for time constraints. Already 15 minutes in here. But guys, also remember we're here each and every Monday on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, also streaming live on Twitter. So check us out, the NFL Opening Line Report each and every Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We also got the Korean baseball show going with Dave Koken and Andrew McGinnis. That's later, I believe, 4 o'clock Eastern. So check that out as well. We got the NFL preview show. We got Prez, Mid-Major Matt, Ralph Michaels. They do that Tuesday at 3 o'clock as well. So check out those shows. And UFC, Gianni the Greek, he's doing well. Kelly in Vegas and Minty Betts join him there. That's on Wednesdays too on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Did you have a chance to do that, Teddy?
Oh, yeah. Lamar Miller is not currently on an NFL roster. He missed the entire 2019 season due to a torn ACL and hasn't had 1,000-yard rushing seasons in 2016. There's not a starting job available for a back of his skill and age, and he's not on a roster right now. So that's the fantasy outlook that was just written like 3 days ago. So it's fairly new. Right now, he's not on anyone's team.
All right. So, Andy, it sounds like they did give up on Lamar Miller, considering he's not on an NFL roster right now. So hopefully he does turn that around. He did have some good years, I believe, with the Miami Dolphins. But Indy, Teddy, we got the next team up here, both in alphabetical order. Never mind, they did not finish second. The Indianapolis Colts, an interesting team here, though, Teddy, mainly because of the quarterback changes. 7-9 last year, straight up. 8-8 ATS, over under, slight trender towards the over at 9-7. Of course, Phillip Rivers likely taking over the starting quarterback role here with the Indianapolis Colts after 16 years with the San Diego Chargers, now known as the LA Chargers here, Teddy. So, lot of years, a lot of interceptions, a lot of passing yards. Overall, a great career there with the Chargers, in my opinion. And then Jacoby Brissett looks to be the backup for the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if he'll give him a push here for the starting position, if they're even going to open that up at all, Teddy, but I'll throw it over to you, man. The Indianapolis Colts this upcoming year.
So, I mean, I'll start with Rivers. The advantage of having Rivers and Brissett is that if Rivers stinks, Brissett has a chance to come in and be, from a backup QB situation. I look at Indy as well above average. Last year a disappointing season, 7-9, after a 10-6 season in 2018. Even though the luck wasn't around there either. That being said, 7-9 last year, they were outgained by 0.4 yards per play. Below average on offense, 5.2 yards per play gain on offense, 5.6, slightly above average on defense. Basically a league average defense at 5.6 yards per play. They finished with a positive turnover margin, +2 in turnovers. And again, 10-6 in 2018, 7-9 last year. From a strength of schedule standpoint last year, that 7-9 record came against a schedule that was pretty much middle of the pack. We talked about that the AFC South teams will be facing NFC North and AFC North teams, the two extras. Again, Houston has Kansas City and New England. Indy has the Jets and at the Raiders. Okay. That gives them a notably easier schedule, even though it's only 2 games different. Jets and Raiders, the big difference in Chiefs and Patriots. It is an easy schedule on paper. Now, they have a little bit of a tough stretch post by. They have Baltimore, at Tennessee, Green Bay, Tennessee at home, at Houston, at Vegas, Houston, and then Pittsburgh. That's not an easy closeout down the campaign, and he's going to have to be playing their best ball down the stretch. But the first half of the season, relatively easy. They only have a one-night game, week 10 at Tennessee. So we're not going to see the Colts a ton on TV this year. Coaches are back. Head coach Frank Reich, offense coordinator Nick Sirianni, defense coordinator Matt Eberflus all return. GM Chris Ballard is back. It's not a team that had a ton of draft capital. Michael Pittman Jr., he could be someone interesting at wide receiver coming out of USC. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Taylor, the running back out of Wisconsin, is someone who could be interesting and having medium impact. I'm a fan of the third-round pick, Julian Blackmon, the safety out of Utah. So a little bit of draft capital coming to the roster, guys who can contribute. Now, obviously, when you're talking about moving from Jacoby Brissett to a 16-year veteran Phillip Rivers, there is the potential for upside. When you're talking about, moving from Margus Hunt to DeForest Buckner at defensive tackle, there was one analyst that called that the single biggest improvement that any team made at any position in the offseason. So DeForest Buckner is certainly an impact player. Expensive, just like Rivers is expensive, but the moves Indy made are all win now moves. And make no mistake about it, even with these moves, when it comes to returning starts from last year, I think the Colts are number 3 in the NFL. They have more than 82% of their starts back from a season ago. So the continuity is there for Indy everywhere, but at the QB position. I worry about the offensive line depth. I really do. Everybody on the offensive line, all 5 linemen, made it through all 16 games last year. Can't count on that. They didn't really have a lot in the offseason. And I do worry about the ability of that offensive line to hold up the same way 2 years in a row. If Indy's get offensive line problems, that's something to pay attention from day one. You don't want Phillip Rivers behind another bad offensive line. But the upside for the Colts, no question. The upside for this team is Super Bowl. Indy has a roster with a lot of decent playmakers, a lot of good talent. The trenches are strong. And if the QB play is there, I like the coaching staff. The continuity is there for the coaching staff. The Colts do have Super Bowl upside. But if Rivers stinks, the offensive line gets a couple of key injuries, this team is, could not just as easily, but they also had, 7-9, 6-10 type of potential. So the Colts are a squad. We're going to pay a lot of attention to their health. If they're healthy, might well be a bet on team. If they're not healthy, Indy a squad that does have depth concerns and may not be anywhere near as good as people expect them to be. This is a watch squad. This is not a squad where I'm like, I know what Indy's going to be. This is how's Rivers going to mesh? Can Rivers still play? Does the offensive line stay healthy? Indy is absolutely going to be a wait and see for me type of team coming into the campaign.
Yeah, Teddy, great stats there. And one thing that comes to mind is Bill Connolly did a study for it in college football in terms of continuity and how much it matters on the offense and the defensive side. And it matters more on the offensive side. And I'm just going to take it to the next level in terms of the quarterback position being the most important for continuity. So when you bring in continuity, but the quarterback position, that really makes me wonder where they would fall on the continuity rankings coming into this year. You know what I mean?
Sure, but I mean, the Connolly rankings for college football, that's different. College, and it makes sense in college. When you have an offense that comes back, that offense is supposed to be good. In the NFL, in theory, you have proper offseasons. You don't have to worry about how many hours you're going to,
That's true. Yeah.
So I worry less about that. In college, when you have your QB back and the offensive line is back and the receivers are back and, your blocking back is that offense is going to come out. They're going to score 35, 40 points a game from the get-go. In the NFL, there is more opportunity for teams to find a rhythm. The training camp is longer, the preseason is longer, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess I think it's a bigger advantage in college than it is in the NFL.
No, it makes sense, and I do agree with you. We got Mike here poking some fun at me, Teddy. Drew, you must have had Rivers in fantasy then. I think he's pointing towards, I said he had a successful career at the San Diego Chargers. Would you disagree with me, Teddy? You don't think he did?
Oh, Rivers is such a, I have such mixed feelings because in many ways, Phillip Rivers has what's been kept that organization relevant for this whole time. And certainly when he had talent around him, every year the Chargers were in contention. But Phillip Rivers has never, at no point, even at NC State, that's how old I am. I remember him at NC State.
Yeah,
never like, this guy's a star. This guy's a Hall of Famer. I never felt that way about Phillip Rivers. So I guess I have mixed feelings. I mean, he was, the ultimate good but not great.
Yeah. Which is successful. I mean, he made a ton of money for himself, and started for, over 15 years in the NFL. For some, that's got to be successful in some form of fashion.
Absolutely. We're not. Yeah, he wasn't. He's not Ryan Leaf.
Yeah, for sure, Teddy. We got Chris asking a question here in the chat box. Any concern with Indy turning the ball over a lot this year with Rivers' history and Taylor's fumbling history in college, combined with a potentially bad offensive line? Good point.
So I'm not looking at their offensive line as being bad. That's a good offensive line. I'm worried about the depth on the offensive line. Their starting five can hang.
Okay.
So am I worried? So that is certainly a concern with Rivers at this stage of his career. He has a tendency to chuck it up, and that has been a tendency for Rivers. And when he's got great receivers, his receivers have great years because Rivers will chuck it up. But that also tends to lead to a fair few interceptions. It'll be, again, Reich wanted him. Okay. Reich picked him. And I trust Reich. So I really do. In terms of him saying, there were multiple quarterbacks available this offseason. And Reich's like, I want that guy. So I Am I worried about it? A little bit, but not a ton. Not a ton. Certainly not from the get-go. If we see Rivers throw 4 picks in the week 3 preseason game in the preseason walkthrough and then open up the regular season and throw 3 down at Jacksonville the next week, then we start to pay a lot of attention. But for now, I have to think that's something we'll keep an eye on, but not something I'm going into the season saying, yeah, we're definitely fading Indy because Rivers is going to be chucking the ball and turn it over every time. We'll talk about that when we get to Gardner Minshew.
Okay. And we also have Grant here, so kind of agreeing with you here. Love the Rivers reunion here. Faced the least amount of wins from last year. Talking about scheduling there, 122. And most talented roster and best O-line in the division. Would you agree with that statement, Teddy?
So it's from the starters or the entire roster?
Most talented roster, and then having a good offensive line. Would you agree that they have the most talented roster in the division?
It's close.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like here's Indy and here's everybody else. Tennessee's got plenty of talent. Houston's not short on talent. But I probably, the Colts probably do have the most, as much talent as anyone in this division. Yes, I agree with that. And they also, again, from a schedule standpoint, have it real easy this year compared to other teams in their division and other teams around the league.
Okay, we got number 3 team here in the division. They did finish last year, 25-1 odds to win the division this year. 6-10 straight up last year. Talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars against the spread, just 7-9 and over under. I got them at 8-8, so no trending there towards the over or the under. You did bring up Gardner Minshew, the mustache and all, Teddy. I was thinking about going mustache for this show, but decided not to. Gardner Minshew, he's a fan favorite, Teddy, but in terms of talent at the NFL, can he kind of sustain at least that spark that he had for a little bit? I mean, just 6-10 for Jacksonville. People talking about, issues in the locker room I've heard this offseason, but overall, what are your thoughts about the Jags this upcoming year, man?
So, I mean, this is a team 10-6 3 years ago, and then 5-11, 6-10 the last 2 years. So they had that one breakout season. Were not able to follow that up with any type of success last year, finishing with that losing record despite a middle-of-the-pack strength of schedule. It wasn't like they faced a brutal slate. A year ago, 5.4 yards per play on offense, slightly below league average, 6.0 yards per play allowed on defense. That's well above league average. It wasn't turnovers that doomed them. They were only -1 in turnover margin. They have an easy start this year. They have 3 division games, and then Miami and Cincinnati and Detroit before the bye. The 2 extra games, besides the NFC South, AFC South division games, Miami and the Chargers. So, theoretically winnable games. And in theory, again, with the 3 division games, Miami, Cincinnati, and Detroit for the bye, they have a chance to start out okay. But look what the league has done to Jacksonville. 14 of their 16 games start at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. All right, they are hiding the Jaguars.
Yeah,
not a team that they're looking to feature or any of that. Doug Marrone returns as head coach for the 2020 season, and I'm a Marrone. I don't think I'm not going to blame anything that went wrong in Jacksonville last year on Doug Marrone. I thought he kept them fairly competitive despite the weaknesses on the roster. They did, of course, bring in a new offensive coordinator, former Redskins head coach Jay Gruden, who, as a coordinator, I'm in favor of. Sure. Let's see what be interesting to see what Gruden does here. I think that I view that as a positive hire, but this is not the type of offseason that you want a new coordinator. This is what's key about Jacksonville. All right. They have one of the youngest, going into the free agency, they had one of the youngest rosters in the NFL and the second fewest salary cap dollars available. Okay. So they have all this money tied up into a defense that wasn't good a year ago, doesn't look good on paper this year. On the offensive side of the football, what's to be excited about? You have a QB who doesn't look like a starter. You have an offensive line that is riddled with holes. You have rookie and second year players that are starting on the offensive line. It's a they had to trade AJ Boye. They had to cut Marcel Darius. They made all of these moves to save money and to deal with the salary cap, and none of that makes them better this year. And they spent all this money on Tyler Eifert, who hasn't really done anything in a long time. And for his, mustache last year, Minshew at Washington State, he made us money. Last year with the Jags, he made you a little bit of money at times. But Gardner, if you're ranking out NFL quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew's not going to come out near the top. He's not going to come out in the middle. He's got to come near the bottom. When it comes to this defense, I don't know what the heck they're going to do to get stops. Their secondary is in shambles. And again, it's a salary cap issues. They traded guys away. And of course, they bring in CJ Henderson, the number 1 pick, at cornerback out of Florida. He's going to be asked to start right away. The second first rounder, Kilavon Chasen from LSU. He's going to be asked to start right away. Laviska Shenault, the kid out of Colorado, who at times was brilliant in his college career, but could never stay healthy. I'm not going to say he's healthy in the NFL either. They have some potential playmakers they picked up, but on paper, this is by far the weakest team in the division. And unless Minshew's able to work some miracles and get that mustache moving, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the safest bet of all is the Jags to finish in last place. There's 3 competitors and there's 1 bottom feeder in this division. And on paper, it's very, very clear. Jacksonville's rough. Of course, from market expectations, Jacksonville's, the markets have the Jags priced as, if they're not the worst team, one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the NFL. There's a chance they could play better than that. But I'm not seeing anything from my research on the Jags this offseason that says this team's going to be any good. Again, when you win 5 games and go over your season win total, that tells you all you need to know about a team. Jacksonville, a bottom feeder once again in 2020.
Teddy, couple questions just off the top of my head after hearing your breakdown here of Jacksonville. One is there a marketplace for betting on a team to finish last in an NFL division? No, is that out there?
I haven't seen it. Yeah, I was kind of saying that tongue in cheek. If anyone finds it, tell me.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in it as well.
I haven't seen that bet. No, they have odds to win the division. They don't usually have odds to finish in last place in the division.
Okay,
and I think part of it is why, because there's always going to be a division champ based on tiebreaker, but who finishes in last place? Maybe there's no tiebreaker there. That might be why it's not in there.
Okay, and also you brought up scheduling. 14 of the 16 games at 1 p.m. Eastern. The NFL trying to hide the Jaguars. I agree with you, but I'll come back at you with, isn't that a good thing for routine repetition that you're always playing at the same time? I do remember the Carolina Panthers few years ago, or more than a few years ago, but when they made their Super Bowl run, all of their games were at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. So, could you actually look at that as a good thing?
I could. I choose not to.
Okay.
I don't think that level of continuity, I honestly don't. At the NFL level, it's not a situation where I think that it's a bigger issue that the league has no interest in featuring Jacksonville than it is that, all right, maybe the Jags can win a couple games and get in a rhythm because they're playing at 1:00 every week.
Right.
The timing of the games is more about the TV issue, and then Thursday and Sunday games, or Thursday and Monday games, obviously. But you're not going to see the Jags on Monday. You'll see them the one Thursday night, and that'll be it. The league's not featuring the Jacksonville Jaguars this year, and I think that is something worth talking about when we do these handicaps. This is the team that the league is burying.
Okay. Well, we got one more team here, Teddy. The Tennessee Titans, 9-7 straight up last year, 9-7 ATS, and 10-6 an over trender here. Talking about the Tennessee Titans, of course, Derrick Henry, what he was able to do at the running back position. Ryan Tannehill, kind of coming out of. I don't know. Moving out of Miami, I thought he played really well, surprising anyway. Tennessee was one of the more surprising teams last year in the NFL, in my opinion. Teddy, can you look for them to kind of continue that and make another playoff run in 2020?
And again, remember that the Tennessee Titans started last season 2-4, and they got shut out at Denver, and they benched Mariota and put in Tannehill.
Yeah.
And from that point on, they were a pretty good team, regular season and postseason. They're a team that, in my opinion, their full season numbers lie because of what happened early in the campaign. And remember, even if their full season numbers lie, look what they did last year. 6.0 yards per play on offense, better than league average. 5.5 yards per play allowed on defense, league average. They were plus 5 yards per play. That's best in the division. They were tied number 2 in the NFL, best yards per carry. The running game was dynamic. They were plus 6 in turnovers. Strength of schedule, middle of the pack a year ago. But this team wasn't an aberration. The defense was loaded. The offense got better and better and better. They ran the football. They made plays downfield. And just about everyone's back. This year, the 2 extra games at Denver and Buffalo, both, in my mind, fairly tough. They have 5 of their last 7 on the highway. That's a tough stretch down all 3 division foes, road games over the back half of the season, and at Green Bay and at Baltimore. That's a brutal closeout to the campaign. Weeks 3 to 6, they're at Minnesota. They have Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and then Houston. They have some, tough stretches throughout the course of the campaign. They have 3 night games: Week 1 Broncos, Week 10 Colts, Week 16 Packers. Worth noting, the Dean Pease retired as defense coordinator. Mike Vrabel did not hire one for the 2020 season, so that means he's going to be the play caller. Other play callers who are head coaches on the defensive side of the football in the NFL, I think it's Fangio in Denver, Patricia in Detroit, and Zimmer in Minnesota are the only other 3 head coaches who call the defensive sets. Now we're going to see Vrabel be the 4th head coach to do that. Of course, I'm a Fangio fan. I'm a Zimmer fan. Patricia, not so much. But it's not saying that it's hopeless because they have no defensive coordinator this year. Arthur Smith returns second year as the OC. The draft, pick up Isaiah Wilson, the offensive tackle out of Georgia in the first round. Christian Fulton, the cornerback out of LSU in the second round. Both of whom I think will step in and have an impact right away. And you look at the offseason, I thought their offseason was really good, and a lot of people aren't giving them that grade. What they need to do. They needed to retain Tannehill. They did. They signed him. They franchised Derrick Henry. Good. Okay, they lose right tackle Jack Conklin, who's a key player, but they re-up Dennis Kelly, and they bring in Isaiah Wilson. He's replaceable. All right, they lose Logan Ryan at the cornerback. All right, which, again, impact player. They get Jonathan Joseph to come in. They draft Christian Fulton. I think he can be replaced. They bring in Vic Beasley. Again, and it's not a guy who's been super successful every year, but it's a guy who has potential to be successful to help the pass rush. Because this team, they had to get rid of Jarrell Casey, who was an impact player. They had an issue with, they lost a handful of, when you talk about Casey and Ryan and Conklin, those are impact players they lost. I think they are replaceable given who they got. And the markets aren't high on the Titans. They weren't high on the Titans last year. They made me and my clients money repeatedly down the stretch a year ago. You look at this year, and once again, everyone's like, Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill was good last year. They got playmakers downfield. They got an offensive line that should be pretty good. They have a defense that we like. There's one team where there's ATS upside right from the get-go in this division. I think it's the Tennessee Titans. And again, even those season-long stats last year that look good, they're not telling the true story because this team stunk offensively the first 6 weeks of the campaign. I think from a value standpoint, Tennessee clearly the value team in this division for me heading in to the 2020 campaign.
I like it, Teddy. Great finish there on the 4th team there in ABC order, the Tennessee Titans. Teddy, question for you. And guys, feel free to throw out any questions here before we wrap this up, and we'll answer them before ending the show. Any week 1 looks, in the AFC South? Because I got one for you. The Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kind of looking towards the dog there. +7 Jags at home. Our friend Ralph Michaels on Twitter, he tweeted out a pretty interesting NFL stat of home dogs right out the gate week 1 doing very well over the last 2 years, I believe. So that would point towards Jacksonville Jaguars being +7 right now. That's one that I'm circled. I haven't bet any week 1 right now, Teddy, but is there anything kind of jumping off at you?
Well, yeah, I bet 3 week 1s, and they're all up for sale right now over at Sports Memo and WagerTalk.com, including a 5%er. That line's not going to be there. I'm confident of that. I did not release Indy Jacksonville for week 1. I will say, because it wasn't a game where I smelled the urgency to get the bet down now. As I'm watching the markets on this game, I don't think the Jags go off the touchdown dog. So if you do like Jacksonville, it's the kind of bet you probably want to make sooner rather than later. But Indy's such a hot team in the markets, and the Jags are not. So we know the system. And by the way, you talked about the Ralph Michaels tweet. If you're not following, you should be following Drew on Twitter. You should be following me on Twitter. You got to follow Ralph on Twitter. He puts out great stuff on a daily basis, stuff that you and I look at and talk about on a daily basis. So, at Cal Sports LV on Twitter, I have no hesitation recommending Ralph's Twitter feed. But there's certainly a case to be made for those week 1 divisional home dogs. The technical trends point towards Jacksonville fairly strongly. And in a year where the offseason is very, very weird, I have to think that the technical trends will be a difference maker in the betting markets. Certainly early, we're going to see the quote unquote, the wise guy money, the sharp money. They're going to be following some of the technicals fairly strongly. And this is the type of technical trend that has a fairly decent track record, an extended track record, enough of a sample size that we would expect bettors to be interested. So to make a short story long, I do think there will be more Jags money at some point before kickoff. I'm not convinced that there's an urgency that you have to make that bet today if you like Jags.
Okay. Great stuff, Teddy. And we got a question here from Lawrence. One from Lazy Spade. I'll just throw them both out to you. Will the Titans get Clowney? And also Lawrence asking, will CJ Henderson be that shutdown corner for the Jags?
The answer to both questions is I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
But let me be sure. When people ask me all the time about what I think a team should do, I can tell you that no problem. But when it comes to the actual personnel decisions that someone's making in their corporate room, and then where the GM is going to decide, I don't know any more than you do. We get reports, I read, but who will they actually do it? I can't tell you for sure. I can't. I'm reading the same stuff you're reading, so I don't know. In terms of the signing. And the other question was, what was the other question? Because I wanted to respond to it specifically.
Will the Titans get Clowney, and CJ Henderson, will he be a shutdown corner?
Look, CJ Henderson, he might be real good, but he's a rookie cornerback. And one thing that we know about the NFL draft, all right, is that at least half of everything that everyone thinks is wrong. Minimum half. Oftentimes 2/3 or 3/4, So I don't know enough about what type of a person he is, what his character is like, how someone reacts after they get millions of dollars in their bank account is different from how someone reacts before they get millions of dollars in that bank account. And the GMs get it wrong, the staffs get it wrong, the psychological profiles, the Wonderlic test, everyone gets it wrong. I'm not a better predictor. So he certainly has potential to be elite. Will he live up to that potential? We'll watch and see.
Okay, Teddy, I want to just throw this at you. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine. I'll just give my little tidbits. But each team playing week 1, where you see the line going real quick. Houston, Kansas City, this one Thursday, September 10th. Right now, Kansas City minus 10-point favorites in Arrowhead. Do you see that line moving one way or the other? Should anybody jump on that one?
So, interesting question. I don't see an urgency there.
Okay.
I don't see that right now, the lines are basically in a place where they're likely to be for the next month. You know what I mean? They really are. Once we start talking about preseason and training camps, we'll see lines start to move again. For now, the lines aren't going to do it much of anything.
Okay. And we just talked about Indianapolis and Jacksonville. Jacksonville +7 at home. It sounded like you liked that one. Maybe not moving tomorrow.
I have to think that at some point that line drops off of 7 and goes to 6.5. I do. I certainly at the sharper books I expect it to, but it may well get bet back up that opening Sunday when everyone says, "Oh my God, the Colts are playing the Jags. They're going to kill them." So it could come off 7, but it may well close 7 as well. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And then the last team here in the AFC South, Monday, September 14th, and the doubleheader Monday nighter. I wish the NFL would do this more than just the opening week. But Tennessee at Denver, we're seeing the Broncos -2 or -2.5 at home. Do you see that line moving at all?
So that was a really interesting number. And we've seen a little bit of Denver support. The markets are not excited about the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
They've taken a collective yawn to their offseason. They're looking at, oh my God, look at the impact players that they lost. They're looking at Tennessee as a team that overachieved a little bit last year. That being said, then now the Broncos have been this monster home favorite in the fan show era or before. That's not a line that there's a huge urgency on right now. I'd say it's more likely to go to 3 than it is to 2 at this stage, or more likely to go to 3 than it is down to 1. Because it would take as much money to move it to 3 from the 2.5 as it would to get it from 2.5 to 1. That's my only point there.
Okay. And then we got Mike asking a question here in the chat box. If no fans or limited fans are allowed in the stands, what will the biggest impact be? I'll throw one out there, Teddy, while you think about it, that I haven't heard anybody else say, but it's away teams' defensive lines being able to get a better jump off the snap count. So it makes me kind of look towards the unders, if that makes sense.
I agree wholeheartedly with that assessment. We talk about the advantage of, and I haven't heard whether we have rules on them pumping crowd noise in or not. There was talk about it, but I haven't seen a decision about it. That may matter, but certainly, okay, this is what we know. Nothing. What's going to happen is the markets are going to make assumptions, and it's going to happen quickly. When the markets will make assumptions, all right, this is what the home field is worth, a point and a half, 2 points. This is what it means to be traveling. It'll be less than the 2.5 that we have. When it talks to the impact on the game, when everyone can hear everyone, one would think that the efficiency might be greater. Now the question is, does the defense gain from that, or does the offense gain from that? Early in the season, it's off the defense that gains from that.
Yeah.
I agree with your assessment that week 1, week 2 might be under weeks.
Okay. And then Chris asking a question here. How will this strange offseason and new COVID restrictions affect the super contest ? Is this a bad year to enter for the first time? Teddy, this is a great question because I've held off myself on entering any contest just because I don't want to tie up the money. What are your feelings on that? Great question, Chris.
Yeah, so I mean, the super contest is great. All right, all the football contests are great. The circuit contest is great. They give you action all year long for one entry fee, and there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
When you say you don't want to tie your money up, it's a way you can tie your money up without making additional bets if you choose to do it that way. All right, I'm going to tie my money up to be in this contest as opposed to betting every week the way that I have. So I don't have any hesitation recommending the super contest, the Circa Million, whatever contest in Vegas you want to do. That said, there's potential to be look. I do think the NFL season will start on time. After that, do we have a season that goes as scheduled? We'll have to see. If it doesn't go as scheduled, the super contest, I would assume, would be canceled immediately, like the first week it does. I actually haven't seen the rules on it, but I have to think.
Yeah, they need to watch that. Could you imagine being in first place in the super contest and then the NFL season being canceled in week 13 or week 12 or something? I mean, what would happen in that scenario?
They would probably refund the contest entries,
Yeah.
So there's certainly more uncertainty this year compared to other years. That being said, being in the contest is fun. It's cool.
Mhm.
It is something that people, and you can get hot and have a chance. So I wouldn't talk you out of it, but on the other hand, I'm not going to talk you into it either. Like Drew said, I personally haven't joined any contest yet either. I will, I think, but I'll wait till August. There's no rush.
Okay. Yeah, the super contest is great. I like the gold nugget one too, Teddy.
Yeah, I didn't bring up the nugget. I'm with you. The nugget's a great contest. Great.
It's $1,000. Yeah. And it's college and the NFL. You can choose whichever one you want. So I recommend that. And also, guys, Kelly in Vegas, in terms of a proxy, if you're looking for one, I couldn't recommend anybody better. I never had a problem in over 5 years of using her as a proxy service. So if you're looking for a proxy, if you live out, I even live in Nevada and I use her as a proxy service. So yeah.
So I mean, and let's be very clear. All right, proxy costs a little bit of money, not a ton. I don't even know what she charges. However many, I don't even know what she charges, but it's like a couple $100.
A couple $100, not much.
Yeah, it's not. It depends. I think it depends on how many contests you're in. But you enter the picks online, and then she enters them for you. And I literally haven't heard of one time where she does hundreds of them, and then they don't get anything wrong. They double check and they text them to you. I mean, it's a really good. We have no hesitation. It's not just because we like Kelly as our friend. It's a good service. If you're looking for a reliable proxy, check out Kelly's. Without a shadow of a doubt, check out what Kelly does. She's really good.
Yeah, for sure. Second that. And her business partner, Brett, he's really on his game too. So if you're dealing with him, recommend him as well. But it's all part of the Kelly in Vegas proxy service. So Teddy, great show overall, man. AFC South, broke it down. Anything else you want to throw out here before we shut this down?
Yeah, have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. I really appreciate the positive comments, man. They make me thank you. They really, during this weird time, you get, you're walking around, you're in the funk, and then someone says, "Hey, I really like what you do." You're like, "Oh, thanks." You feel better. I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much. It's been a fun, we've done all 8 divisions, and it's been it's good for me. It's good for me to make sure that I get my work done and I can talk about these teams and my off-season prep's done. And I'm working on college football now, so looking forward to that. Here in late June and throughout the month of July.
All right. We got the college football preview show tomorrow, guys. Same time, same place. So come back and join us. And Teddy, you're next up on Thursday, right? With Minty?
Yeah, but we don't have a topic yet. So I don't know what the 101 is going to be this week. If there's something you want us to do a betting 101 on, let me know. And I'll bring it up. But usually I'll let Johnny tell me what he wants to 101. But yes. Thursday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel.
WagerTalk YouTube channel. He's Teddy Covers. I am Drew Martin. Guys, remember to wash your hands and best of luck with your bets. Thanks for tuning in, boys.